can't have this no more.
And we're live. Welcome to A Nice Place to Brew. I'm Jason.
I'm Holly.
And who's this guy in the right-hand corner? Bill. Welcome, Bill. We'll give Bill George of Froge 52 a proper intro here in a second. But before we do that, let me slide my mic over. Today is September 3rd. We do our webcast here on the YouTube channel every Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Our YouTube page has all of our past episodes, so if you can't wait until next Thursday, all of our shows are archived, and there's content going back to the beginning of the quarantine. So check us out. Let's see. We have a website, www.aniceplacetobrew.com. We have social media pages under the names A Nice Place to Brew and Nice Place to Brew as handles. And we also have a podcast under the same name, A Nice Place to Brew, that's available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and all those places you get your podcast from. Bill, what are you drinking there? Oh, wow. Well, that's a beer that does not need much of an introduction. KBS. That is a beer of champions right there. Hello, George.
Hello.
Welcome.
George.
Thank you. Hey.
Welcome, George. I'm Bill George.
You're Bill George? I'm just George.
You're just George. Let's go around the horn. Okay, so we know what Bill George is drinking. Paulie, what do you got, sir?
Homebrew. That Mosaic Promise smash that we did 3 weeks ago.
Nice.
It was just ready today during a brew day. We did another brew day today. This will be my 5th batch I've done in 3 weeks. So I got a good two of them have been mine. 3 of them have been Rick and Randy's here. So we're the system's going. It's going. So it's been fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I got my creative juices going, and I already got like the next 4 weeks brew days and going and playing. And they're all going to be no chill, I think, except for maybe Polish Truck. Maybe Polish Truck I'll chill down because that whole all those hops for that long trying to cool down. I don't know about that. Actually, I brewed yesterday. I got a porter that I'm going to bring home tonight and transfer into my keg or into my carboy.
Right
but
on.
Actually, today was a lot of fun because I was really I keep talking about helping Uncle Rick out with his rib. Today was a day I just sat back and drank beer and smoked pot and told them what to do.
Something our audience is quite aware of that you do, Polly.
George, what are you drinking tonight, sir?
Okay, so I've got something a little different. It's from a craft brewery that's kind of sold out to the evil empire, but it's not a beer. It's a vodka mule from Devil's Backbone, their distilling arm. And it's vodka with ginger juice and natural elderflower flavors. So, it's 7.5%, pours super clear. So we'll see how this goes. So I did ask them when we were there. I was like, so how much does, the evil empire, Anheuser-Busch, meddle in your affairs? And then I don't know if I should say this publicly, but what are the chances anyway from Anheuser-Busch is listening? They said, to be honest, we opened up our distillery and they didn't know it was there for a couple weeks. So it sounds like they leave them pretty well alone.
Classic.
Yeah, that paints a very clear picture.
Yeah. So so drinking that.
All right. Finish going around the horn. I have a beer called Juice Pants made from Maplewood out of Chicago, Northwest Side. A very, very solid brewery here in the Chicagoland area. This is a hazy 7 point something. And what kind of hops?
Great beer.
Oh, it says
just a great beer.
It really is, yeah. I thought it had the hops on it, but apparently not. It's good though. That's all I need to say.
Okay.
All right.
I don't think I've had a bad beer from Maplewood, to be honest.
No, I really haven't either. The first one I had from them was I think 2 years ago. It was in November, December, and it was a brown ale. and I had it on tap at a place near my office. And the first sip was like, whoa, that is a fantastic brown ale. So, and since I've had, a handful of other things, I still have not been to their brewery. Shame on me. But
It's
yeah,
beautiful. My favorite
It
part
is.
is the doorman. There's a doorman. This guy's just reading his book. I'm like, dude, what book you reading this time? I mean, and those dudes are just so friendly, down to earth. I went to the Great American Beer Fest last year for the first time ever, go figure, and those guys are out there front. I'm naming off all the beers like it's their kids. They're just smiling ear to ear. They're like, how do you know? I'm like, oh, I live on the west side of Chicago. Like, I'm Augusta and Rockwell, right? So just right out here, neighborly, super nice guys. And was that brown ale? Was that the graham cracker beer that they had, possibly, or gingerbread? Was it?
I thought that was a
I don't
pug
think
one.
it was. I don't think it was, but that sounds amazing.
It might have been the pug. You're right. They have that pug beer, fat pug.
I think it was that whatever was playing, a pug. Yeah, fat pug, exactly.
You know
Actually,
what?
I got a funny story.
That name does ring a bell. I think that's the one.
Hey Jason, I'm over here on Maplewood site in the cart, and offer code Jason at checkout is not working. You have to say something to them about that.
But Maplewood's getting a free plug here.
I mean, and how creative their Juice Pants series is. They have like a little comic book storyline of Return to the Juice Pants. It's like, guys, thanks for being hilarious and creative on levels.
It's always good to see them engaged like that. Yeah.
So, Bill George, welcome to the webcast. I know you're joining us on short notice here, and we're thrilled you're able to jump on. There's a big part of your home brewing history that I'd like to focus on for discussion here. But before we get into that, can you give a little brief bio on yourself, and what was your introduction to home brewing, and what's kind of keeping you busy from a brewing perspective lately?
Thank you, Jason. And yeah, appreciate being a part of it. Yeah, Bill, love home brewing. My parents were home brewers. Growing up, I didn't really care for it. I was like, what's that smell? What's that smell? I was one of those guys. And now I think Joe and I have brewed 130 batches. Last Sunday was our 130th 5-gallon batch. So really passion, labor of love. I'm a lifetime member of the American Homebrew Association. I'm a member of JBG. Love those guys. Also a member of Chaos Homebrew Club in Chicago, Aurora Brew Crew, and Pale out in Plainfield. Love just the camaraderie, love everything about homebrewing. It's really been exciting. It's been a really good journey. I mean, even in COVID, I homebrewed, I brought a keg and everything in my trunk, and I drove to Kentucky, did 10 gallons there. I actually did the big brew day, and I had Chicago Brew Works mail me out all the ingredients for, what were those beers? It was the Pangea and the Quarantine IPA. So a lot of people and homebrewers did that this year. So did 10 gallons there. I mean, drove up to Michigan, brewed 5 gallons. I mean, I was down in Texas. I actually brewed for the Joliet Brewers Guild hop contest using, Texas water. I mean, it's been fascinating. I mean, recently, I brewed up in Colorado at about 7,600 feet. That was my college town. So I was visiting my brother in Kentucky because, again, whole family loves home brewing. We're big fans and hope to share that experience with others. So it was really awesome home brewing and showing others, kind of like how Paulie was doing today. Hey, come over here, mix this. Hey, throw these hops in, right? It's really such a wonderful experience.
I know baking tends to get affected by altitude and everything. Do you have to make some adjustments for brewing when it comes to altitude like that?
Yes and no. I mean, the short answer is yes, but the long answer is relax and drink a home brew, right? I mean, we're sitting there doing extract brew. I actually mailed him out. It was Elevator Blues by Chicago Brew Works, that kit, just something easy for my guy, because I know he only brewed 5 gallons. He's like, oh, Bill, well, if you're coming to Colorado, I'll just wait and we'll brew it together. I know I'll make a great beer with you. And when I went there in school, there were other temperatures I like to get with, right? Like vaporizers. And in science, for every 1,000 like feet, you go down a degree in Celsius. So instead of like what you do in Chicago at 156 degrees, Paulie, you'd be doing at 149 up in Colorado mountains. So it is true that you have to drop it. And
Oh,
at the end of the day, you're still getting a raging boil. You know what I mean? And maybe his beer would have longer chains because it was hot. You know, who knows? Like if we're really dissecting it. But again, if you're over 136, right?
You're doing
relax
good.
and
Yeah,
drink a
yeah.
homebrew.
Yeah, no, that's true. But so like to get a normal light body beer, we're typically 149, 150 degrees. So you're saying that you'd be somewhere low 140s in Colorado?
Yeah, if you wanted to, I'd probably do 145 where I was at. Again, and I'm factoring Celsius, not Fahrenheit. So when we're doing
Celsius, this is America.
well, you got to think it's a 1 range compared to a 2 is how I look at it, right?
No,
like,
I know.
So
Yeah.
America.
No, I know. But yeah, so
damn it.
yeah. All right, but you'd
System.
be a little bit lower. That's interesting. I've never brewed at altitude, so that was
yeah, I wasn't thinking about it either. But again, I love the homebrew groups because, you know, we're obviously sticking together through all these COVID times. We're all communicating. So, you know, I'd lob up, hey guys, brewing up at the altitude. You know, one of the guys is like, hey Bill, don't forget that. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Good call. Because I mean, it's still going to be a good beer if you got a thick mouth feel, you know, ale. I mean, it's not a bad beer.
yeah.
I mean,
But I feel like if you're a thick mouth feel pilsner, you know, it's not exactly what you're looking for, you know. So
Oh wow, that's rough.
might not be ideal, but yeah, I mean, again, traveling was unique because it just reminds you of core fundamentals, right? Like Paul, you mentioned building the setup at your buddy's house and working on brewing it and all that. There's still fundamentals to home brewing. And so whether you're brewing on a kitchen stove or if I'm back in Joe's garage and we're brewing on an anvil kettle, I mean, you still got to get the base functions down. And that's kind of helped me. And you always learn when you're teaching, right? You always like, oh, how would I explain that? Because you have to really gain comprehension. And it's really cool to see people's, you know, oh, how long does it take to make a beer? Like, you know, I'm going to tell you 4 hours, but it's going to be 6.
Right.
And then that's just the beginning.
Joe's right.
Is that me or
Lost
Paulie?
you. That's
Paulie.
Paulie.
Good question.
Okay.
Joe, Bill, anvil system now?
No, we just have an anvil, kettle, and burner. Right?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you now.
We got you,
Yeah.
man.
The question was if Joe and I upgraded our system.
Okay. I thought you guys had like
No, not yet.
No,
maybe
I thought you guys
Sam
were,
will give it to us.
I thought you guys upgraded to that anvil.
Paulie, we only got room
Hey,
for one guy.
Paulie, I'm gonna
Yeah,
hey Paulie, can you log out and log back in? You're fading in and out, and it's hard to follow.
The secondhand smoke has taken over his device.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, his question was if we were doing any upgrades, and not really. I mean, the biggest upgrades Joe and I have been doing and really have found a lot of success. I mean, the temperature control, but we've been doing that. Now we're doing glass only, as well as doing closed transfers. We're just really trying to continually improve and just think what else could just make a little bit better beer. I mean, again,
So
we're
when you say
taking it
glass
easy.
only, are you talking about like glass carboys as opposed to pails, or like?
Yeah,
What are
to
you thinking?
buckets. You know, Joe's historically a glass blower, right? So he secretly just loves the glass. He's like, you know, I mean, And I agree. I think it's really easier to clean. You just have better peace of mind. It can be a little heavier, but stakes and weights, right? Like, let's go, drink a beer, lift a beer. Like, that's why we do all the
Yeah.
little 8-ounce pours, so you can get ready for the 5-gallon keg.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I also use buckets like up at Chaos and everything. I still don't feel like they're bad. It's just, if I had my choice, it'd be glass. It's just hard storage up at Chaos to store, but buckets, I mean, I can stack them, right? And
Right.
again, obviously you have ideal situations, but truly believing in the glass and even that closed transfer, I mean, be mindful, be aware, obviously glass can explode, I mean, just be mindful, right? Like, that's all I can say. Be safe, don't be sorry. I mean, it's really been successful going back to my story brewing with Joe. Before Joe, the first beer I ever did was an amber ale. And I just put it in the carboy in the basement. It was fermenting forever. I was like, that's going to be a good beer. Not knowing any beer principles, just, hanging loose.
I'm not. That is not a comment on you. I just know the first beer is never a good beer.
Right. And so finally did everything we needed and got it into bottles and did all that. Obviously I was light on the carbonation like most. I mean, it really can be a science when you dial it in. And really just unfermented sugars, just sweet malt bomb, right? We've all had them, maybe the yeast didn't fully attenuate, like, and then my next beer, I was doing 1-gallon batches that were sours. And I was just so into drinking all these beers and trying all the things. And, everyone thinks it's easy, right? Everyone's, oh, wow, I can do this. Fast forward, I didn't brew a beer for like another year and a half. And Joe kind of had some passion towards, hey, let's brew. And I'm like, you know what? I did so much different cool things in 2017. I think I had a list of like 40. I traveled here, traveled there, blah, blah. We can talk about that later. I was like, I really want to dial in 2 things. I want to do, 2 big hobbies. I want to go fishing and I want to brew beers. And Joe and I that first year brewed about 55 beers and 2 ciders. I mean, we were just loving it, every week, just, hey, and when you got that accountability partner, like I said, blowing up some glass, when you're watching each other's backs and you're, having that mind share and you're brewing with people, it's definitely going to be a better beer.
Yeah, I remember Jason and I, he was my accountability buddy out there, and we definitely did one a month solidly for like 2 years. We kept that up.
Yeah, we did. That's the first time that I've heard it put in that context, and I think that speaks volumes about having somebody around you, not just as a a partner for making batches, but having somebody that can hold you accountable and somebody you can build knowledge with. And for from my perspective, that was huge for me, just having George there at every step that we were making as homebrewers together. So no, that's very well put.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so fun because, I mean, Paulie, you talk about having your beers planned and what have you. Joe and I just did our Oktoberfest, and you can pull Zymology out. You can read all those articles and everything, and it's so fun and fascinating to just be messaging back and forth like, oh, man, hey, do you know this? Oh, man. And just really geeking out about recipes, and it's just it really makes balance to life, right? You obviously work 8, rest 8, leisure 8. Make sure you're brewing for those leisurely 8, right, guys?
So Bill, you have some fans in here, but so there's a comment of that you should get the Furmonster, and yeah, I think it's if I remember correctly, that's a conical fermenter. And Doug asks, have you been to Kentucky recently?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I when COVID all hit, it was probably like March 12th, and I live in downtown Chicago. And long story short, I'm like, hey, boss, man, like, can I just work from home? Like, this conductor's visually sweating. He's like, all right, go for it. So I thought it was going to be like 3 days. And my brother's playing college baseball, right? He had some dingers, just really awesome. 6 foot, 205 pound, looking like a Greek god who origin was a little fat kid. So he's really humble and so nice of a dude, right? So I went there to just cheer him up in morale, and obviously it wasn't 3 days. I think we're at 16 weeks now. So he lives out in rural Rowan County, and they didn't have a case of COVID until late April. And he's got all the home gear buckets. I kicked him down a keg like a good older brother, and it was really amazing. I got my annual fishing license there. They filled his 1 acre lake that's 5 minutes from his house with 500 trout 2 days before I got there. They're jumping out the water. So you say, hey, Bill, you wanted to learn to fish? Well, I certainly got a lot of fishing in during COVID. I got a fishing license annually in Arkansas, in Texas. I caught an alligator gar. This guy bent my hook twice. I was like, what is it? Because I'm learning, I don't know. We've all fished, but not to the intense and mindfulness like how you're applying skill acquisition like we are with brewing today, reading books, trying this, right? So I finally get this gar in. I'm like looking at my brother, Tom. I'm like, can I even touch him? What are these, catfish bites or something, right? So.
So I was wrong, by the way. I was thinking of the Firmzilla is the plastic conical. This is the Firmonster. It's a PTE big mouth carboy, plastic carboy with you got a spigot on there, makes it easy for bottling and stuff. So that is the recommendation for you. So I used a more of a traditional what's the word I'm looking for? More of a traditional plastic traditional carboy, but plastic, the kind of pet plastic. And to be honest, I didn't have any troubles with it. I did, when I clean it out, I tend to do just a caustic cleaning with some, I can't think of words today, Jason, the cleaner. PBW.
PBW, yes.
Yeah. I tend to do just a cleaning with PBW, and it cleans out nice, and it's a lot lighter than glass and less prone to being dropped and shattering all over your floor. So a couple steps in the right direction there. So and
yeah,
Doug,
I recognize that for sure. It's just Joe loving his little glass. He's always going to be a little fanboy for glass, Can I get a plastic cup? Do you have a glass?
It's just so damn heavy. So, and Doug, no, we are not entertaining the idea of trout beer. I don't know what it is, but we're not entertaining it.
Wow. Flavors that don't go together.
It's actually a gag beer because, we've had this Flavortown beer that was once introduced to us from a real, the guys over at Joliet Brewers Guild, right? We love brewing beers, and we got this recipe from Chicago Brew Works, and David over there, who's now brewing up at Moore, would, offer up this troll recipe to novice brewers, and he would call it Flavortown. And so the beer would be a Heffenweizen smash beer with peated. And so Chaos, if you recall last August, and thank you for all that supported Chaos's recent fundraiser, really appreciate everyone. They had the whole theme be Roush beers. Right. So I'm like, well, Joe, you ready to make that Roush beer? We got a rhyme and a reason. And so we did it as Kvike yeast, and we did it with just, I think, 11 pounds heavy peated. You open it up, it smells like a smoke bomb. And definitely
wait. Hold on.
On you.
You made a Roush beer with, oh crap. I just lost my train of thought.
100% heavy peated malt.
Heavy peated.
And Kvike yeast.
Oh, and that's what I was going to say. Why the decision to go with Kvike yeast?
I just think that yeast is so amazing. Joe and I have already done 5 batches with the Lutra, I think it's idiot proof. You know, I've seen Lars talk in person up at Chicago brew yards, at the brew yards. I mean, it's just I mean, you can't even mess that strain up. I mean, that's what I was using in Texas because it just really accelerates. I mean, I made an American light lager, but I did that Lutra and I was drinking it and kegged in 4 days. I mean, that's why I really like kegging too, because you accelerate the timeline, less likely for time of off flavors or weird growths, right? So that's why we really liked Kvike. And that's when Kvike was, you know, getting exciting. And so, you know, Chaos, like, oh crap, Joe, we got to get a beer ready in 2 weeks. What are you going to do, Kvike? And then we also have the Blickman Quick Carb, which has been an amazing experience because we once tried to do, I think, was it 27 beers in 6 weeks? I mean, we were crazy men.
27 beers in 6 weeks?
Yeah, and we entered 20 because that was all you could enter into Winter Brew because we love feedback, right? Feedback's humble confidence. You know, we're humble, we're not the best, but we're confident with the feedback we'll get there, right? Especially when people are trained. You got some of these guys that can just, and you just, whiz.
Oh, yeah.
All right, please take my $5.
Hold sorry, please, pause. So I looked up this quick carb thing. First of all, ain't cheap, $180. But they say, and Bill George, you tell me if this is right. They say you can carbonate a 5-gallon keg of beer in less than an hour.
It was amazing.
You can.
So, yeah,
that is crazy.
So check this story. We invite my little brother Steven and all the Lockport former baseball kids over to Joe's garage, and we say, hey, boys, we need to drain 7 kegs, and we're going to fill them back up because the time window, right? Like, you only have so much space, and we're reaching out to people, hey, can we borrow kegs? And, yeah, there was one night we're just nonstop just kegging them. I mean, labor of love, you know, home brewing. It's therapeutic, and you know, you got your buddy, and I mean, if you met Joe, you know he's a hell of a dude. I mean, a lot to learn on the field and off. So, good guy.
Jeez. So, yeah.
So it's not always boiling water. Sometimes you're just cleaning. Sometimes you're just rapping, right?
Yeah. No, I know that myself. Actually, the last week's episode, last Thursday, it was me and Paulie were talking earlier on in the show, and I was ranting and raving about just this really long cleaning session that I had gone through a couple nights prior, and I was just not a happy guy because it was 90 plus degrees even at like 9 o'clock at night, and it was just me. It was just one of those cleaning episodes that just never ended. And anybody who's a home brewer out there can relate to that, you know, because cleaning sucks. But if you're a home brewer, you're spending a lot of time doing that. There's no avoiding it.
Yeah, one tool I really like, and George, if you can find it and pull it up on the screen, it saved Joe and I so much money on his water bills and so much money on cleaning. It's that pump that you can kind of put the kegs on, or you can put the buckets on. I mean, it's a loose $100, but like if you're 130 batches in, we clean that one carboy 3 times per a batch, right? You got to think. You got a primary before you go. Mm-hmm. You got it for the secondary, and you're cleaning it for the next time. So it's like, man, you just cleaned, 390 vessels?
Yeah. Can you pull that up, George? I am familiar with what you're talking about, and you make a very good case for making an investment in that.
Yeah, Chaos Homebrew Club, they got 3 in there. Sometimes I'll just spend a day getting my money's worth just running like 3 kegs clean because you still want to run it for some time with the PBW.
Oh, of course.
Even though there's motion and it's not just sitting, you know what's up. Best practices.
Do you want to throw out a plug there for the Chaos Beer Club? Yeah. And I'm glad this is coming up because Paulie and I know Chaos very well from participating in their summer festival the last, or I should say the previous 2 years. But we have not talked about the club or what who they are and what they do in great detail. And it sounds like you know a lot. Can you give a little plug for them?
Yeah, sure. Again, I've been a member of Chaos maybe for a year and some change now, and I really love it. Essentially, I was brewing out in Crest Hill at Joe's Garage, and the guys at Joliet Brewer or at Chicago Brew Works were saying, "Hey, Bill, why aren't you brewing at Chaos?" I was like, "What's Chaos?" They're like, "Oh, it's the Chicago Home Brewing Alchemist of Suds, and you can find them on social media, or they have the .net." But essentially, think of them like how you have your home gym, right? You've obviously invested into your Blickmans, your blah blah. Some people have it, or they're in the city and don't have the space. You're in, you know. I mean, Joe and I brewed in an apartment. The walls were sweating. It was crazy. Learned a lot. But it's a place where it's a shared space where you can all come together, and it's a non-for-profit. They do a lot of cool local events. Like we do fundraisers. There was one time we brewed beer for the 1 year or 2 year anniversary for a local taco joint. I mean, they do that event to bring all the homebrew clubs together, the beer barbecue. They have their annual party. So I would say reach out to them because you can become a member and you can pay a monthly or yearly fee that is really pennies on the dollars compared to you investing. I mean, I have unlimited space to brew there. So you think about, hey, Joe, how many, vessels can we fit in the fridge? 3. All right, well, Bill, bring the cider you guys made with that bubbly yeast up to Chaos. And it's got facilities to do lagering. So it was like, oh, wow, let me do, American light lager. Let me do an international pale lager. Let me do, finally did the Rausch beer with a lagering yeast. I did smoked wheat over Rausch, and it came out so good. It was just tasty. But again, Chaos is a facility over on the west side of Chicago. It's right off the Metro line. It's really cool. It gives home brewers an opportunity to brew. It gives people a home.
All right, Jason, do you want to share that? We'll see if that's what you guys were talking about.
Yes.
Is that what you were talking about, Bill?
Not that guy, because it's a little plastic container, like a little plastic like plate, and then there's a little pump. Because you can also, what Chaos did is they kept it as is, but then they also created 2 in old buckets, so you could flip your keg in there, and it's more sturdy. Because carboys get knocked around, people got kids. I mean, how it goes.
They may have made that. They may have made that then, because I've seen ones like this before, and basically you submerge this device in a bucket of cleaner, and you connect up the tap ends, and the disconnects, and it just goes nuts when you turn it on, and it works really well. But it's one of those things that, if you can find a way to build it, do so, because they are not the cheapest things in the world. Like this,
no, I want to say it was like $100.
Well, this one's $210. So yeah.
Oh no!
Hey, Paulie, can you hear us?
Can you hear me? That's the question.
We can hear you. Yes. Yeah, man, you're good.
All right. I wasn't. All right. I at first we were all breaking up, so I didn't want to be jumping into anybody. So
yeah.
All right. Thank you. That's cool. But I'm gonna go back on a previous conversation. Joe and your Flavor Town and his smoked one. You want to hear my honest opinion? No, you don't.
Oh boy.
Tell us.
I was texting back and forth with these guys. To me, because it was all peated smoked malt, it felt like I was kissing my fucking smoking grandmother as I fucking drinking it.
He was in love. He was in love. It reminded him of the family.
So, do you guys get that pun? Did you guys get that pun or no? It tastes like grandma. I'll take a packer or a bushel or whatever. Just give it to me.
You still want more? We know.
You still want you kiss your old grandmother, and that's the takeaway. Is you want more?
No. It tasted like an ashtray. It was tasting like an ashtray. It tasted like I was drinking a fucking.
No. I get that. I was commenting on what Bill George was saying. And he went straight to, it was love. It was love.
It was great. It was funny, but like, I don't know. First of all, I should say how I met fucking Bill and Joe. A couple years ago, we were at a fish show, and we're not even thinking about fucking brewing. And I'm wandering around, and him and Joe are like, "Hey," and we got talking about a few things, and then our mutual friends like, hey, this guy's a brewer. Him and Joe's eyes lit up like you would not believe.
Yeah.
And then we started talking.
You brew beer?
Yeah, exactly. Like
Tell
that,
us
Bill.
everything you know.
And, so we got talking back and forth, and then we swapped numbers, and then he said, "Hey, we're brewing next week." I'm like, "All right." So I get a text from a random number, like, "Hey, we're brewing. Come on by." I'm like, "Are these the kids I met at Fish last weekend?" They're like, "Yeah." And I went over there and I got to know them guys. Like the first year I met them, they had a plan, and they did it. Their first, when these two guys first got going, 52 batches in 1 year. That's literally brewing once a fucking week. And I
don't
was
have
like,
space for that.
wow.
I don't have the
Well,
space.
No, they didn't
most
either,
people
but they
don't.
did.
It was at
Well, see,
one
the problem
point
is-
they were just all the way up Joe's stairs because, like, and then I mean, it takes a village, right? If you ask me, like, what my core competencies for success, it would be desire, faith, and teamwork, right? We had our dream 52, faith. You know, Joe and I are going to do it, and then teamwork. The amount of people that have helped us out over the years, you know, between all the homebrew groups, it's fascinating. I mean, everyone has powerful people in their lives that'll just really help them out. I mean, someone kicked us down a little chiller, so that way we're able to cold crash. I mean, we were getting a fridge then from Grandma Judy. Like, it's really cool how things have snowballed to where they're at.
Yeah. No.
Well,
it's
no,
always good.
well said. What did you do with all that beer? That is so many batches in 1 year.
Drank it. I mean, Joe's a father of 3,
Oh.
and then if you're on Untapped, I mean, I'm drinking 100 different beers a month. Like, it's literally like we're drinking a lot of water too, but I'm beer erexic, right? Like, there's a pork chop in every beer. So I mean, we try to share it. Again, at Forge 52, we're trying to make it a community. We're trying to enable others. Hey, come on over. Hey, you haven't brewed in a while. Your stuff's been on a shelf. Bring it over, dude. We'll make it happen for you. Because again, it is a lot of fun. It's a little more fun when you have, you know, some friends. I'm sure, you know, George, Jason, right? You recognize that. Paulie, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you're
Absolutely.
brewing with the group today. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it really is cool. So anyone wants to try the beer, we were always trying to be in all the competitions to get feedback. Flavortown 1 scored a 16. Flavortown 2 scored, I believe, a 32. So to get that growth
Wow.
in a beer, it's just phenomenal. And what'd you do? Just tweak a few things. Thanks to the feedback, right? Humble confidence. Hey, man, thanks for the feedback. Wow, I didn't even think like that. I mean, these guys have studied all the beers. They've had their beer judge certificate programs, right? BJCP. I mean, might as well lean on them. So drank most of the beers. Because, like, be honest, 5 gallons is just 52 beers. You know, we'll get into numerology, right?
Just, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
26 beers, I mean, per person, right? And then you're sharing them with your coworkers. Hey, try my beer. Hey, you know, I mean, you know how homebrew works.
Yeah.
Leave some bottles
true.
places.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I'm in all the homebrew clubs, so we love bringing bottles to the team. Hey, what'd you think of this? Oh, what would you do differently? Oh, what was your experience? I mean, the world of homebrewing, I mean, find your local homebrew club and check it out. I mean, it's really amazing, the community of homebrewers.
I'd agree with that.
There's a recurring question that I've been asking the last several shows, and Bill, George, I will ask you this. Because you just brought up an example of a beer that you entered 1 year and got a 16, and then the following year you got a 32, you know, which is a great sign of just evolution and improvement over time. What, in your experience, has been really the game changers that's taken your beers to higher levels?
Right there. Yeah, for sure.
As far as things that other people can do, I would say it's temperature control. I mean, it's really was night and day. When you can keep that yeast stable, you're obviously stopping a lot of those core off flavors. When you can control a diacetyl rest, you're controlling a lot of off flavors, et cetera, et cetera. One thing I wanted to bring up, because Paulie was talking about cold crashing or a lot of hops in a beer.
So
The one thing I would say that really changed us is Joe and I's passion, right? Like Joe and I are like so dedicated to skill acquisition and just really manifesting our dreams. And so we read a lot of books. And one of the recent books is that hop book that's out. If you want to pull that up, George, that's a phenomenal book. They're talking about, yeah, there's a recent
like water
hop
malt,
book.
hops, and yeast.
No, let me see. It's called The New Hop.
That's the series that George and I know about. There's a book series. And there's 4 separate books for water, malt, hops, and yeast.
There,
George,
the hops one is a bit
new
of a,
IPA. Search new IPA because the core competency I want to say here today is soft crashing. So when you look at all those stud brewers towards the end in the appendix of this new IPA book, they talk about only cold crashing is 62 degrees because you're dropping out all the aromatics of some of those higher hopped. And again, you can still make a great beer getting over 136 degrees and, relax and drink a home brew. But what really has changed our beers is the passion of Joe and I and how we've just combined this mixture of knowledge and this community of information to really apply it each and every week. And so that new IPA book, they're rethinking and re-identifying how to look at hops. So instead of saying, hey, each IPA I'm going to do, an ounce of this, I'm going to do an ounce of that. They're like, well, this has 80 milligrams of oil in it. Only put, an 80% of that because you want to get to that final outcome of that component. And they go really into it. But that's what it is. Again, it's me and Joe's passion, the amount of time and energy that we put in Forge 52. I mean, it stands for Froelich and George, Bill George and Joe Froelich, brewing 52 weeks. Work ethic.
there you go.
I mean,
yeah,
Absolutely.
that's the one you're talking about, right?
Buy. That's a must buy for anyone. I mean, Joe and I, we fail forward. I mean, we're doing so many at bats that we're like, hey, what can we continually improve? When I've talked to professional brewers, one of my favorite breweries is Transient. And you're talking to Chris and you say, hey, Chris, what would you say to Joe and I? We're just really, he can tell we're passionate as hell. And he's like, look, man, what helped for me is I really focused on farmhouses. And I did each one incrementally a little better each time. And every week, Joe and I are just doing a little bit better. Hey, what can we focus on now? The biggest thing now is RO water. Yeah, it's cleaner than Crest Hill water, but there's no minerals to hold some hops. Like,
Well, yeah, but you put salts in, right? Like you
we're
make
about
it
to
RO and then
learn.
you put salts
We bought
in.
the water book. We have the water malt and those
So
four.
definitely
those are
read that.
core.
But brush up
Oh.
on your chemistry. Trust me.
So-
but also check out Bruin Water. And if you really want to dig into it, I would suggest upgrading because Bruin Water, he has a lot of really good articles and information about water chemistry and how it affects beer and everything. So Bruin Water it's just an Excel document that you plug your water profile in, and for RO water you basically put zeros, and then you can tell it I want to match this target profile and then play with the different salts to be able to get there or as close as you can. And I've been using that for a while, and that's really upped my game as far as being able to dial in my recipes and those flavors and everything, and have the right water for malty beers versus hoppy beers versus light beers and things like that. So
It really is. I mean, from a home brewer perspective, I do believe that Bruin Water Calculator is the best water management tool out there.
yeah, I mean, the one built into Beersmith is pretty good too. I've run that a few times. Each one does it a little bit differently, but I've seen a lot of success with Bruin Water.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I hesitate to advocate for that because I very much support everybody like gaining their knowledge and building their knowledge and reading books and, just getting smarter and better along the way. But if you're lazy, and this guy right here is, you don't have to spend all that time reading the books, because the Brew and Water calculator, once you get the basics of it, it's just repetition. And then it's just changing profiles and then just building off of that. It becomes very, very simple.
I will say, though, if you decide to set aside that laziness for a second and actually like read the water book and pair that knowledge with what you're doing in Brew and Water, you can get more out of it.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
Well said.
But you know, for those of us that don't want to refresh your whole idea of how chemistry works, or just don't have the time to sit down and read and slog through a book on. I was reading it at a Disney resort in Florida on the beach, and my wife's like, "This is your fun reading." And, that's how I roll. Technical manuals, religious books, that kind of thing is my jam. So
John Palmer wrote that book, right?
Did Palmer write that one?
And
he may have.
Yeah, I mean, lucky for me, I mean, I got a degree in healthcare administration, so I've taken so much chemistry. I'm like just chomping at the bit when it gets to home brewing, and it's like laws of thermodynamics of water transforming, or like strike temp. But again, like you said, Jason, you want to use these tools because people that are homebrewers, you want them to get some quick wins. You want them to find some wins in the hobby so they keep it up, right? I mean, you don't want someone to just boil some crappy malt bomb and just never pick it up again. It's a labor of love. It's definitely
true.
So I would say that. And yeah, Chaos, again, they have a computer there with all the tools. They did their Rand water report, so you can kind of see that. And interesting enough, Joe and I did the Crest Hill water report. And again, it was pretty standard, but you know how conspiracy theories are. It's 2020. People are paranoid. There's everything in the water. So some of our guys were like, "I'm not drinking your water if it's the water from the back of the stout, guy." It's like, all right, relax, Dino Hands. Shout out to Dino Hands.
So yeah. I mean, yeah, I have read at this point. Let's see, yeast. I think the only one I haven't read is malt of that, and I definitely recommend those books, but I definitely know that they are, and I am by no means trying to sound elitist here. You have to want to dive into the science of everything of it, to read those ones. If you want something that's more accessible, that you don't have to like, okay, I'm going to pause and relearn what the hell this means as I'm reading. There's better books for that, but these ones will, will give you a lot of good information.
Yeah, sometimes I find myself learning, some really never go past misunderstood words, and always stop to look them up, because if you miss one part, you're gonna miss the rest of the message, right?
Sure.
But I love reading. Joe and I just keep buying books. I mean, here's the biggest book we're reading right now. I just love this guy's story, right?
Yeah.
It's just fascinating. You talk about decoction, and when I was in Michigan, Brewery Vivant had a homebrew book club, and I had my brother buy that and then bring it down to me in Texas to read. And this book has been just hilarious as well. But I mean, we really, really, really love brewing beers. I always like buying those AHA for Joe every Christmas when they give you a free book, and we just read the book, right? You know how you can buy the 1-year membership, and it's usually got the promo with a book. You're like, sweet. And I think it was Brewing Like a Monk. And Chaos soon after had a competition with Goose Island to make a Trappist single. It's like, Joe, what's even a Trappist single? I go to a brewery, I drink an IPA, right? You drink a stout. I mean,
yeah, you very rarely see a Trappist at a brewery.
And now Joe's like, if you find another Dory, grab it, Bill. I mean, I drove up to Hopleaf. I mean, I live in Chicago, so I'm blessed, and I use that Untapped app to really track and figure out where things are at that I'm interested in or haven't tried before. Again, I'm trying to drink 100 different beers a month. Wow. But But yeah, they had the Dory. I was like asking my local liquor store, Puerto Rico Food and Liquors. I was like, I know you got some Trappist. Can you just check in the back if you got the, it's this color.
Are they referring to quads when they ask for Trappists?
No, so
No.
from my understanding, there's the single, which is the brother beer that is the table beer that's the runnings that everyone drank, and then they had the double, which is being sold to people. Then they're like, hey, we got to have another holiday. Let's do the triple, and let's tweak a couple things. And then hey, fast forward, let's go another holiday. Let's do the quad. And so some of them have a little uniquenesses. I don't really recall them off the top of my head right now, but some are a little more different, darker SRM, a little more maltier, while the triple is your.
So, and to lend a little bit of flavor into this, a Trappist beer is kind of technically what you've brewed is not a Trappist beer because you're not a Trappist monk.
True.
Technically what you brewed was an Abbey beer. It's kind of like champagne versus like, what do they call it, sparkling white wine or something like that. Yeah, it's it's Trappist beer is an Abbey style beer brewed by Trappist monks. But does that
fall outside the Belgian category though, George?
Yeah, well, there is Belgians and Enkel, which is the single, double, triple, and quad can all be Trappist beers.
Right.
Yeah. So
in Trappist, if I recall too, it's A, brewed on a monastery, then B, it's observed by monks, and then C, the money raised is donated to churches. Because when we started brewing, Joe and I, I'm such a simpleton. Right. I'm like, we're going to brew method traditionnel, but for like IPAs. Like, I want to be method traditionnel, meaning like a goose, right? Like, that's another Belgian beer, a blend of a 1 plus a 3. You're taking old flavor plus new sugars, and you're mixing them together, right? So I'm like, Joe, method traditionnel. Check out this Corey.
Look how George's face is lit up.
Not that. I discovered something.
What's our differentiator and passion? I mean,
I discovered we have a road trip in our future because, all right, so in order to be an actual Trappist beer, it has to be brewed in one of 14 monasteries. 6 are in Belgium, 2 are in the Netherlands, 1 is in Italy, Austria, England.
Guys, I gotta jump. I'll be right back.
But Discovery.
Keep going. Keep going. Where's the other one? Because I'm recently
Italy,
on my way to Kentucky.
France, Spain,
Indiana,
and
St. Joseph.
There's one in the U.S. It's not in Indiana though. It's in Spencer, Massachusetts, and it's called St. Joseph's Abbey. And that is a Trappist, an official Trappist beer monastery that now I want to visit.
I'm looking this up then because I was in this church in Indiana. I'm trying to look it up because I was there because I'm like, Joe, I'm in your church. And I mean, it's a fun story, right? Like, I enunciate all my words with A's, right? Hard A's, taco, gymnastics. I'm Chicago South Side guy, 708 area code. So if you go to St. Joseph's Trappist Monastery in Indianapolis, you can get a pour of a flight of 4 different beers for $7.08. I was like, 708. I give the guy $11. 11's my birthday, August 11th. Happy belated birthday. And he's like, man, I'm glad we were open. I was like, I'm glad you're open too. He's like, dude, I just started this gig. I mean, shout out to everyone in the industry, who can't be working as hard as or have the hours they want. We love you guys, and extra tip those folks, right? Like, shout out to all the bartenders, shout out to all the breweries. I mean, showing love. I mean,
yeah. So, all right, so they use 4 ingredients, so it's full run Heizgebat kind of brewing. This is Spencer Trappist Ale. It's an authentic Trappist product. It's 6.5 alcohol by volume. They suggest serving temperature of 40 degrees and a tulip glass, kind of like this one, for serving it in. So they use the wells on the Abbey land untreated. So they pull the water out, and that's what they use. And hops from Yakima Valley, Willamette, and Nugget are what they use. And they use the quote Spencer malt mix, which is a proprietary blend of 2-row and 6-row barley and a caramel Munich specialty malt to add color and body. So that's what they do. And then they have their own special strain of yeast.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? I mean, it was crazy. And Joe and I are big at Forge 52 into immersion learning. So, like, while we're brewing this, we're listening to Gregorian chants. Like, dude, we're literally asking everyone. And my biggest ingredient, if anyone's making Belgian beers, is floor malted Pilsner, right? I mean, it is night and day. I mean, again, 136 degrees. Relax, drink a home brew. But, like, when you're trying to push it and you're trying to do incremental improvements every week and just improve floor malted Pilsner. And yeah, I found St. Joseph's Brewery. It's at 540 North College Avenue, Indianapolis, Indiana. So, I mean, it was right there. It was really beautiful. But yeah, that was probably the last day. They're like, yeah, governor said tomorrow we're shutting down. I was like, shit, I wish I could drink more beers, but I've got to go to sleep. Like, I'm a big fan of a flight, and I'm joke about drinking, but drink responsibly, right? You want to make sure you can drink for 10 years.
So as a monk-based, well, at least a church-based brewery, but it's not a Trappist brewery, according to now one Trappist brewery that we are probably all familiar with, and people that are not, deep into the beer scene is Chimay.
Yep.
That is
Chimay. That's the Dory. That's the Dory. That's the one. And yeah, it's fascinating if you read Brewing Like a Monk and you see the history and how it was war torn and how the geography and people move. I mean, like, wow, there's more to craft beer than just the beer. It is the world. So it is really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, traveling and brewing in all the locations really taught me so much about water. I mean, it really, like, how fresh that Texas water in Colorado was. And, Michigan was decent. Kentucky was, all right. But I'm telling you, you could tell. So there's definitely some little things in there that are worth some whiles to look up in some of those books. I mean, there is some intention in detail, but at the end of the day, I mean, relax and drink a homebrew, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, Paulie, I can't. Go ahead, Paulie.
So we're talking about the water chemistry. Since you've been brewing all over the place, what's your take on Lake Michigan water over everywhere else you've been brewing from?
I mean, I'm a 708 Southie, so I'm biased. Chicago, we the best. First coast, God, yeah. Go big. I'm even wearing my Korean baseball organization, Doosan Bears, around the neighborhood, right? Like, even Korean baseball is cool if they're Bears fans. Go Bears. But I mean, I'm biased. But again, I love Lake Michigan. I remember learning in an environmental course, again, talking about history of brewing, talking about history of Lake Michigan, right? It's an iceberg. We're so blessed to have all that fresh water, when all these volcanoes explode, we'll be brewing with fresh water, I mean, obviously mountain water was cool and everything, Colorado's great, but, like, man, Michigan taught us. And you're one switch away from having good water or poison water. So definitely RO your stuff and salt it up. And I do want to bring up Larry Bell. Shout out to Larry Bell.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Bell's
Brewing, right?
Love those dudes. Hop Slam, great beer. One of my favorite brews is Oracle in August. And what I want to say is when I was touring Larry Bell, I've been on the tour twice. I mean, you learn something different every time, right? Rewatch the movie. And they talk about him using his platform to really now negotiate water rights in Michigan. And I mean, after everything that went down, I mean, it's definitely needed. You learn about Flint and everything. And again, shame on us. History's taught us that we don't learn anything from history. So we definitely need these guys being our advocates and making sure we got clean water, because it's one of the core 4 ingredients of craft beer. And I mean, dude, hell yeah, dude.
Makes up most of the beer, you know? Yeah.
When you read that that new IPA book, they talk about the salts even gathering. When I've been at Chaos, those guys have been super encouraging. So we've used phosphoric acid now in our water. If anyone hasn't pH watered, please start trying that. It's pretty cheap to get the test strips from Brew and Grow. Shout out to Paulie's Brew and Grow. Love you.
The world famous Brew and Grow in Bolingbrook, Illinois.
Hashtag Jason, which actually might work, to be honest with you, if someone says it. I could probably make that work, to be honest with you.
And
okay,
like
so
gypsum, though, if you throw some gypsum in your water, I mean, it's going to be night and day. I mean, shout out to Brewology and all the information they've contributed to all of us. I mean, those dudes, impeccable. The side-by-sides, that data analysis. I mean, again, you know, learn from the mistakes of others. You don't have to touch the stove. You know, Paulie can tell you it's hot. He's already touched it a couple times.
So, Paulie, you had a question, man, and you're muted right now if you want to.
I know, I'm off. I was just asking for a beer from Rick. So, the whole thing about when we were talking about books, I didn't want to interrupt Bill. So, the one book that got me going, because granted, we all know my brewing history, like the Home Brewing for Dummies, Martin Nachel, he's a Chicago guy. Like the way his book is written out, it's just kind of cool. If you got a question, you can find that, and it'll tell you basically the answer you're looking for. And you're like thumbing through a hops book or a malt book or the yeast book or the water book. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does, and you're right. I mean, and you know, just like any of the dummies book, it's not going to go into great depth. It's not going to be like, you know, here's everything you could possibly ever know, but it gives you a lot of really good, solid information to, you know, get to what you're looking for. So it's one I don't own it, but I've definitely looked through it, and especially for a new brewer, I would definitely recommend it. Yeah.
I really agree. I mean, Paulie hit the nail on the head. You want to be leveraging these books, right? Anyone can post some information online, and everyone's setup's different. But these books are really timeless, right? Like you look at Lars writing that Kvike book. I mean, like the amount of research that he put in there. You know, that How for Dummies. I mean, it's such a good format. You know, it's really well organized, and that's what homebrewers really need. I mean, it's still cool seeing, you know, long, old, you know, email chains of conflicting information online, but some of these books are definitely standards. And up at Chaos, they have a book rack you can kind of grab books from, and communal knowledge. I mean, it's really cool, everything that you can pull from all the home brewers. I mean, even though you've only been brewing for a year or 2 years or one day or never at all, you can take the knowledge of people that have been doing it for decades. And some of those books represent so much good information.
Yeah. Hey, Jason, the revelation you missed is there's an official Trappist brewery up in Spencer, Massachusetts that I think we should road trip to, because
I love it.
Yeah.
I've wanted an excuse to go to Massachusetts for the last several years. So
now there's beer involved. So
done. All right, man. Let's put it together.
All right.
Hey, George, how far is it away from Boston?
Massachusetts is not a big state. It can't be that far.
A big state, yeah.
No, I could take us to a brewery in not Boston, Cambridge, on the other side of the river. That they have a stained glass in front of there, and the stained glass is Jesus, Jerry, and JFK.
Wow!
Well, you just started some good talking points.
Wow!
I know there's some Catholics that probably would not.
but I could text somebody and find it in a minute. It could be a phone call away. Like years ago, I went to Boston for a fish show about 10 years ago, and he told me about this. And thank you. And I know you're right. But at that time, like we didn't have time to stop there, but he at least drove by and let me get pictures of it. And I wish I still had it because I had a picture of each stained glass.
Okay,
It was
so it looks
funny
like
as hell.
it looks like it's about an hour away from Boston. So, but that's doable. What the devil?
So we all
Oh, that's
we
an
all,
opener.
we all meet in Boston. I know a few cool places in Boston. We meet in Boston, spend a day, go there, hang out, or we can Uber there and Uber back.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout
it
out
could
to
be
Boston.
We're heading into the perfect time of year to do that too.
We are.
Right?
Autumn.
Yeah. Fall.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you brought up a few things really quick, Paulie, so I want to crack a couple jokes. And yeah, shout out to the Didarios. They actually made Joe and I, you talk about a community, you talk about people working together. They both made us these, he's a metalsmith, and he made us these, people are really, wow, hey, people say they do crazy shit all the time. You guys actually did it. Wow, good for you guys, you know? You inspired me. I mean, we inspired his brother to make some breads, but yeah, when you talk about Jerry, I actually have this hat. I use this Grateful Dead, and these are all the states I got haircuts in. And so I'm due for that Massachusetts, if you can see. You know, still got some white space up there, so definitely keep me on the itinerary for that one.
That's
All
how
right.
you
And then-
measure your state travels is
For sure.
having haircuts.
Correct. I mean,
Wow.
you know, everyone wants to go to Disneyland. I want to do the most down-to-earth shit. So if you get your haircut, you say, hey, what's local, what's real? You know, I mean, it's
Yeah.
fascinating. People are like, damn, you went to where for a haircut? I've never even been to these states. And, you know, I've been to, you know, a handful now, right, in the last 5 years, getting haircuts, just fucking around, drinking craft beers.
I think you need to make a seriously in all seriousness. I think you need to make a documentary out of that. Getting a haircut
real.
in 52 states, and what have those interactions been like? I really think there'd be some
Phenomenal.
substance there.
Phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah.
look at some of those states, right? Like, dude, very, very fun. And it's
Yeah.
just my Kenwood Liquor South Side, and, you know, big Crooked Stave fan on tour, you know, again, an alumni of Colorado. And so I have pictures of me and my mom in Crooked Stave when they still got vessels. And I go there today. I'm like, hey, look, it's me and my mom. They're like, weird fuck. All right, cool. Here's a free beer.
So
Hey Bill. Actually, are they still in the hippie mall in Denver?
They're in the Source. Yeah, they still are.
That
Dude,
little
I
hippie
love
mall.
those dudes. Me and my
Yeah,
mom took a member berries, dude. Yeah, dude, it's just a co-op shared space, really ahead of their time.
So I was there like 6 years ago. I just got the notification on Facebook the other day. And this is actually my favorite brewery in Colorado right now. You can get it in Illinois, or not Illinois, Indiana and Wisconsin, or a sour brewery. So I'm out in Denver. I'm posting stuff on Facebook. And I had a few close friends say, hey, go to Crooked Stave. I went in there. I didn't realize they were a sour brewery till I got my first beer. But I walk into this building, and it's like a hippie mall. You got a mid-range high-end restaurant, a taco place, literally a butcher, a baker, a flour maker, a high-end bottle shop, and a brewery. And I walk into this brewery, and they're playing like 70s Dead. And I'm like, whoa! And that's how I fell in love.
home.
Yeah, I'm home, but I live in Chicago, right, George?
I forever love Colorado as an alumni state. I mean, it's just got a little landlocked blues, and who doesn't like a little altitude to get your ABV really exciting real quick, right?
God, yeah, you get drunk up there in the mountains quickly.
Other
that's
amazing breweries, and if you get a chance, and I just want, if anyone ever questions Paulie's memory, I mean, it's dead on accurate. Everything he just said is all those spaces. He's got a memory like a hawk. Don't let any of the cannabis confuse you. But there's that Utah
say
brewery,
Baker?
Epic,
There was a Baker here.
and they do the Gauntlet Challenge. So if you can pull that up, George, their menu, it's that Denver location for Epic. And if you bring a couple of your friends, I mean, essentially it's one pour of everything for, I think, $36. I'm not sure if you can see that or share it, but let's see. The Epic Brewery, the Gauntlet. Because that's my other big favorite thing. I mean, if you're just looking to slam a bunch of different beers, you can do the Gauntlet. Yeah, you see it on TripAdvisor, ranked as the 44 number out of 239 things you should do. But yeah, they bring you a whole plate of every single beer that they do. And you know Epic Brewing from that Baptist beer, right? Everyone's seen it in the shelves. They do the barrel age. And then the other one that I would say is it Black Project? Those guys are just phenomenal brewery out in there. Or is it Black Project? Yeah, Black Project Spontaneous and Wild Ales. Again, I mean, I'm from an era when craft beers just used to be DeGard and, you're happy you had an R&D from New Glarus, right? So it was crazy how many amazing breweries are out now. I mean, shout out to everyone in the industry. Everyone's making great beers. I mean, I'm now drinking the espresso.
So it looks like, though, that they're taster glasses. They're not full pints, are they?
No, but I mean, again, this is $36. Or like, for you to get 40, 60 ounces of beer for $30. I mean, you and your buddies are having a quick power hour in 45 minutes, right?
Right? I agree with that. Actually, it's kind of funny because there was one time a few years ago, the one time I went to the Great American Beer Festival, I was tossing around the idea of moving to Colorado and leaving the Chicago or Joliet. I'm going to say Chicago, or leaving Joliet. And I went out there and I went to this festival one day at the Great American Beer Festival. It was fun, but if you're going to do the whole GABF, you need to do 2 or 3 sessions. And if you want to do, best way to do that is, I'm going to give a relentless plug here, join the American Homebrewers Association, because as a member of the AHA, you actually get first crack at GABF tickets. Yep. Okay. Bill with his card. I can pull my card out.
In case anyone needed Bill's account, Bill's number.
Yeah, look it up. Steal my information. Lifetime member. Expires 2099.
So,
but actually,
go ahead, Paulie.
You get besides first crack at the tickets, there's actually one session that's AHA members only that can get in there, that can buy those tickets. So
it's a phenomenal event. Paulie's preaching. He's 100% right. I mean, they have wonderful.
All right. I can
wonderful
agree with
accommodations. Wonderful accommodations.
It's not the great taste of the Midwest. I'm giving another shameless plug. It's not the great taste of the Midwest in Madison, Wisconsin. Bill, you haven't been there yet, so you haven't experienced. I know everybody.
I'm due. Buy my tickets on my birthday weekend. Bill's birthday, 2021. He just wants someone to buy him a ticket. Come on, shameless plug.
Is that all I got? Is that all I got to do, Bill?
Ooh, you dirty dog! I knew you was.
That's all I got to do. I'll get fucking Joe up there. Actually, you should come for a ticket weekend with us. I mean, the whole sitting there. You go to a brewery and you set up camp and you sit there and drink. And the brewery's usually open. You can go get food and get beers and go back in your campsite and sit there and drink. And then you wake up in the morning and you got some guy knocking on your tent or whatever. And and you're in a drunken stupor, you just put your wrist out, and they put a wristband on your wrist, and that's your spot in line. You get 2 tickets per person.
That's
Trust me, I've
awesome.
been doing this for like 7 years now. This is a fun event. If you're going to do the Great Taste of the Midwest,
I hear that. I mean,
I would highly
everyone's
suggest,
telling me that.
highly suggest doing both weekends.
Okay.
And then
So,
you get a week.
hey guys,
You get a weekend.
yeah. So
What?
I want to round this up here real quick. I was sharing something earlier, but I did want to step on your conversation. But I wanted to, since the concept of road trip came up, I wanted to share this one this time around because I didn't want to forget all the details of it. But we went down to Nelson County last weekend, and because it was raining with the remnants of Laura going through, our hiking got canceled. So it turned into a drinking and eating around Nelson County fest, which I was heartbroken about. Just totally, I was destroyed. Anyway, so
Sounds awful.
It was horrible. So this
You poor
one,
guy.
I know. This was the first one we went to, and it's a true farm brewery, and there was something unique about it that I had not encountered before. This is one that grows their own grows their own grain, malts it themselves, and then uses that to brew their beer. Now they do bring in some specialty malts that are from other places. They do the base there, but that when you're talking about they call it dirt to glass, and basically they do everything from growing it to malting it to crushing it to brewing it to serving it, and it was definitely unique. And great views, as you can tell, of the mountains there. And one of them that really stood out to me was one called Red Saison, and that is a brewery that our buddies over at Pollyanna. It reminded me of their beer Orenda, which
Whoa.
yeah,
That's
it
quite a
really
comparison.
it really honestly did.
Wow, really?
Now it's a saison versus, I believe Orenda was either a triple or a quad, right?
Quad.
Quad, yeah. So it wasn't quite as, full as a Orenda is, but it's brewed with red wine grapes in the mix, and then aged in red wine barrels.
Where were the
And
grapes? Is a mash edition?
I didn't get a chance to ask that, but I know that they add somewhere in the process they add red wine grapes.
That's so interesting. Wow.
I know, right? I thought so too. But when you get this out, it's got this like ruby red. Let me see if I can get a picture of it real quick.
Yeah, I'd love to see the SRM.
Yeah, this is a hybrid beer. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Gene,
49
correct me if I'm wrong. It's usually a little barley that you can get some of the red colors on the head of a beer when you're doing some homebrew. If you want to kind of get that going, is that right?
Sometimes
this from a grape.
There's a malt out there called Red X that does accomplish that.
Okay, so this is a hybrid between, it's 51% barley, so it is technically a beer, and 49% Petit Verdot grapes pressed at a local vineyard with Saison yeast and Fuggle hops. And so they've got a bunch of pictures down here. Let me see if I can find one of the Red Saison.
Yeah, I love those location spots. I mean, when I was in Colorado, I was at a Colorado Farm Brewing, and it's in my local college town. It's about 12 miles out from rural, south central Alamosa, Colorado. I'm like, how can you go here, though? I mean, you need a designated driver. I'm a guy that drinks, 4 beers, and after 2, you're over the limit, big dog.
Okay, here's a picture of it.
Okay, that's the one.
Put me there.
Okay.
Make that my background on my phone, right? Like, dude, look at that. Beautiful.
Right? Isn't it though? It's awesome. And it's just this ruby red color, and it just was still beer, was still a Saison, had those spice notes that you would expect from a Saison, but just screamed at the same time wine.
I mean, it
And
even looks like wine.
yeah,
I truly believe that the future is about blending and sensory and perception awareness more than it's going to be
Mhm.
about brewing. And I mean, I mean, look at that,
Yeah,
you know, I
I
mean,
agree with
the
that. Yeah,
complex, I mean, there's just so much going on. I mean, again, it's simple, but it's complex at the same time. And that's the best part about home brewing and craft beer in Central. You know, I mean, it's whatever you make it.
I agree.
so
You know,
yeah,
the
so
platform to be creative while staying to the fundamentals and the sciences of drink making. Yeah, yeah, I agree, and I think certainly over the last 5 years, things have. I think that creativity and inventiveness has continued to grow, and this is just another evolution of that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the one that stood out the most to me. And we went to two cideries. There's one called Blue Toad, which is out of New York, but they opened up a cidery in Virginia that Jason I tagged you on Untapped about because they had a blueberry cider there that was just
Ooh.
like, big neon letters, Jason, and and we went to Bold Rock, we went to Devil's Backbone, like I said,
Okay.
I got
Okay.
that there. One
Yeah.
called Wild Wolf and the Brewing Tree, which is a guy that there's a brewery in Richmond called Star Hill that is gotten very big, very popular. A lot of regional distribution. He actually was one of the original brewers there, and pieced out to open up Brewing Tree because he just got tired of the whole big brewery aspect. So he purpose built a brewery to be 90% tap house with a semi permanent food truck on property, and just basically turned it into a restaurant brew house there, and does events and is very happy doing that. So
That's
Nice.
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
Good for
beautiful
him.
land. I mean, I think about the Appalachian Mountains, man. I just keep looking at it. They're beautiful. I mean,
yeah.
and it's good to step away. It gives you peace of mind and really makes you reevaluate when you come back, right? So now you're feeling
Yeah,
charged as shit.
we just needed to get away for the weekend because the wife and I both work out of our house even before this. And now with limited access, limited interaction with the outside world, we're just kind of going stir crazy. So we got a little bed and breakfast down in Nelson County. There was, I think, a dozen rooms at most, so it was relatively safe, and just chilled out. Drove around Nelson County, drank beer, ate food. It's a good time.
Again, shout out to all these breweries. Again, I've been traveling. I've gone to a lot of these breweries during COVID. I think we can talk about it now that people are over the phase of shaming people for consuming and supporting local small businesses. Shout out to all the craft breweries. But there's been a lot of enhanced health and safety.
Oh
One of
yeah,
my favorite breweries that I went to during this whole time was down in Atlanta. And I know you're drinking a seltzer, so I want to bring up seltzers, but they did.
bite your tongue.
I love seltzers. I
No, it is not.
recently.
It's not a seltzer. That's why I'm saying that. I don't like the
Oh,
seltzers.
sorry.
It's a
It's a
vodka
mixed
mule.
ginger vodka
Yeah,
mule. But so
yeah,
going back to water, Joe and I recently have been just doing sparkling bubbling water, using the
yeah.
cucumber.
I've been doing that too. Yeah,
Cucumber.
we've been doing
I
that.
mean, you got all the gear. So,
Yeah, we've been doing that too, and using the fruit extracts that you get at like the homebrew supply, and just adding that in there, and
so we've been doing the
it comes out really
Moslin
well.
bags and then throwing cucumbers, kind of just doing a gallon at a time, shooting it for 30 psi, and we've had success. I've
Yeah,
done a $4 batch of strawberries, just cut them in half, threw them in a muslin bag, boom. I tried using frozen blackberries, but by that point I split my bag, and then it was just so much pulp.
yeah.
But
We got away from using the fresh fruit because we were getting some inconsistent results. And with the water, I'm not a big fan of extracts in beer. I feel like it doesn't balance well with the beer, but with the water, mixes real well, and we've not had any issues with it. So we've just been using that.
Again, Joe and I drinking 26 beers a week. We're
Oh,
definitely symptom relieving with healthy waters.
I
So
would hope
that's
so.
a big thing. But Scofflaw Brewing has, and pardon my French, is fuck cancer was their big seltzer, and they did a fuck Corona. And again, in French, the word fuck means walrus or seal, I think, right? It means seal. So they're just saying seal, Phuque. So that's where the phrase "pardon my French" comes from. Oui, ha ha. The more you know. But yeah, they had this hazy, just tropical IPA, and I'm like, I gotta get this beer because my roadmap was really like left Chicago, hit 450. I remember talking to that brewery. I mean, fun fact, I was asking them, and Paulie, you're fascinated. I said, hey man, what do you think about throwing, oils into this, medical oils? And he says, hey man, we actually own a brewery in Mexico. And he said, we already been do that down in Mexico. And he said, actually, oils look more immersion because a lot of the seltzer water that I'm making is like healthy seltzer water, if you get what I'm putting down between the lines, and really making elixirs because, again, Alchemist the Suds,
Right.
it's not just, we make ciders too. But yeah, Scofflaw was amazing. And again, we got on that path because the whole time I'm in there, they're cleaning everything. I mean, you're in these breweries now, they're spraying everything. I mean, you talk about sanitation with brewing. I mean, all they did was bring the PBW out to the front of the house and spray it down, right? The Star Sand that's in your glass has now been washed through your table. Like, it's been pretty cool. I felt really safe in a lot of the breweries. I actually got to participate, and thanks for all the support. I participated into a science fair down in Texas at Celestial Brewing. It was their second annual science fair. And we're all familiar with science fairs. I'm a big science fair fan.
Yeah, I voted for you.
I always volunteer every year at. Well, go ahead, Paul.
I said I voted for you this a couple times now. Did you win? What'd you place in that, actually?
I got second place, or not first, what I call it. First place, the guy's presentation was great. It was something really simple, goofy. And to give some background, Celestial Brewing is probably one of the best breweries in Dallas, right? I really love those guys. They're making juicy beers. They're making fruity sours. They're making stouts, right? Like good times had by all. And they really care about people. I feel like good vibes, right? And so they do a science fair, and it's not a real science fair. I mean, if you pull it up, George, if you could pull it up, that'd be awesome. You can show. Someone did like, hey, which cat is the most comfy to lay next to? Someone did like how to cool a beer and use some tools to like really freeze them. But mine was, how many yeasts are in the Chaos Homebrew Club? And so it was just a really way to promote chaos because, again, there's no real science. And I dropped off a pizza box that I taped a couple ads to. They were just like, procedure, methods. I mean, you know how science fairs work.
Yeah,
experiment, right? Outcome. And the outcome and my conclusion was there's no way to determine how many yeasts have been in chaos. When you think about ale yeast, when you think about lager yeast, when you think about Kvike yeast, there's so many. When you think about how long chaos has been around, there's so many. When you think about a sour, there's so many. So inconclusive. And then I said, hey, please join us for all our events coming up because we are trying to have some events. We're trying to get back on the rails. So, again, check out Chaos. But, yeah, that Celestial, I mean, it was fun. And they gave you, like, a free T-shirt. I think it was, like, $20. I was, like, laughing, right? Again, going back to having fun with your friends, homebrewing. I mean, we're drinking beers. We brewed a beer, and then we're, like, decorating a home, like, we're decorating a pizza kit. Like, come on.
So before we close out, Paulie, you've got a drunk Paulie story?
Yeah, why I don't have my beard anymore.
Why do you not have your beard anymore?
So, Monday night, I got off work. I was hanging out with a friend, and we're having beers. And I wake up Tuesday morning, my day off, and like, it was a rough night last night. Doing my typical morning thing, taking my morning pee, and I look and I'm like, why are my clippers out? And I look in the sink. I'm like, why is there hair in my sink? I look over and my left cheek is clippered.
Just the left one?
Just the left one. Everything underneath and over here.
This is good side.
Still there.
I love that so much.
I see. Okay, now you wrote in here why I don't have my beer. But did you mean to say beard? I thought you
Beard,
like
He typed beer.
Oh, my beard.
So I'm thinking clippers. How does that relate to why he doesn't have a beard?
Sorry,
Should I
sorry.
be concerned?
No. Why the big ass COVID beer that I've been taking care of, that's been talked about for episodes, it just needs to get grown back. So in about a year, as long as we keep doing this, I'll have the epic beard. And now I know how to control it a little bit more.
Yeah.
You also know to lock up your clippers when you're drunk.
Take the battery
that's good
out
advice.
before you go out.
Actually,
That is good advice.
The night after, I was having beers and I already hit it, and hopefully I don't find it.
You put in that shoebox in the dirt in the back with all the rest of the dogs. All right, Paulie?
Well, Paulie, I will be the one to say you're looking good.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
seriously.
I'd swipe right.
Play with it all.
You may get some fanfare here. It's like, oh, Polly, you're looking good with the freshly clean trim.
Yeah.
No,
Paulie's
I'm
selling
not
so
clean
many
cut.
T-shirts and
It's
merch
so
out the back of the yard.
I mean, okay, but compared to what it was before, that's all I'm saying.
True.
Yes.
True.
You could actually see what I look like underneath my beard. So.
There you go. No, now you have the picture, everybody. All right.
And Joe and I say over at Forge 52, the beard's the only thing that separates you from a child. So you're looking really young, Paulie. I like it. I'm hooked, you know.
That's true. Hey, listen,
That
we
happens.
got
You
four
just graduate?
guys, four
Did you just
beards on this
graduate?
webcast. I mean, we're painting a picture that clarifies that for everybody here. So, all right, guys, time to round it up.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. We do the webcast every Thursday here on the YouTube channel at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Our archives here on the YouTube channel have all of our past episodes, so check them out before next Thursday when we do this again. We do a podcast under the same name, A Nice Place to Brew. It's available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and all the podcasting platforms. Check us out there. And we have a website, www.aniceplacetobrew.com, and social media links at A Nice Place to Brew and Nice Place to Brew. This is Bill George. That's Paulie. That's George. And this is Jason saying thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And we send off one last time, and we raise a glass, and we say, George.
It takes a lot of good beer to make great beer.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Too many more. It's been real.